Okay, so ChatGPT has pretty much exploded into our lives, right? Especially in education. But what actually makes a student decide, yeah, I'm going to use this? Is it just hype? Is it because it's easy? Well, today we're going to dive deep into the psychology behind this huge shift in how we learn.
And this, right here, is the question on literally everyone's mind, from teachers to students to parents. Are we looking at a revolutionary tool that's going to boost learning and critical thinking? Or is it just the ultimate cheat code, a shortcut to getting work done? That's the core debate we're going to unpack.
All right, so before we dive deep into the psychology, let's kind of set the stage here. The whole conversation around ChatGPT is, well, it's incredibly polarized, and for some pretty good reasons. It really does present both incredible promise and some significant peril.
You see, this whole debate basically splits into two camps. On one side, you've got the advocates who see a total technological breakthrough, a tool that can help students write better, be more productive, maybe even feel more motivated. But on the flip side, you've got experts waving some serious red flags about things like misinformation, enabling plagiarism, and, of course, huge concerns around data privacy. And it's that tension, that push and pull, that makes it so important to figure out why students are actually using it.
Okay, so to get to the bottom of this, some researchers in Jordan basically decided to play detective. They rounded up what they called the usual suspects, a lineup of key psychological factors that they thought might be influencing a student's choice to use ChatGPT. And here they are, the whole lineup. Now, these aren't just random guesses. The researchers pulled these from established theories on how people adopt new technology. Each one represents a different reason a student might decide to log on. So let's break down what each of these suspects really means. First on the list is performance expectation. This is the big one, really. It's the bottom line question for pretty much any student. Is this thing actually going to help me do better? Is it going to improve my work, save me time, and ultimately help me get better grades? It's all about how useful you think the tech is. But, even if it's something super useful, if it's a pain to use, well, that's another story. And that brings us to effort expectancy. Basically, how easy is it? Is the interface simple and intuitive, or is it a clunky, complicated mess? If it's too much of a hassle, a lot of people just won't bother. Then, of course, there's the whole social angle. That's social influence. You can just call it peer pressure, right? It's the idea that your choice is shaped by your friends, your classmates, maybe even what your teachers are saying. If everyone else is using it, you start to feel like maybe you should too.
Okay, moving past things like convenience and peer pressure, we get to something way more fundamental in our digital world: perceived security. Do you actually feel like your personal info and what you type in are safe and protected? A lack of that feeling could be a huge deal breaker.
And that idea of security leads us right into our final and maybe the most important suspect of all: trust. Now, this is a little different from just security. It's about dependability. Can you rely on the information it gives you? Do you trust it to work the way it's supposed to? Trust is really the foundation here.
All right, so our lineup is set. The researchers were ready to start their investigation. They went straight to the source, university students in Jordan, to see which of these factors could actually predict whether or not they'd use ChatGPT. So what did they do? They went out and gathered data from 518 university students. And that's a pretty solid number, It's a big enough group that we can start to draw some really meaningful conclusions about what's going on.
And they didn't just wing it either. Their method was really rigorous. They used a detailed questionnaire and this powerful statistical tool to crunch the numbers. Think of it like this. It's a fancy way of not just seeing if our suspects are connected to the decision, but figuring out how much of a role each one actually played. Okay, the investigation is over. The lab results are in, and we have a verdict. And honestly, it's probably not what you'd expect. Let's see which of our suspects were the real motivators and which ones, well, got off scot-free. So, first up, did it matter how easy ChatGPT was to use? You'd think that's a no-brainer, right? Of course, a simple experience would be a major factor.
Well, nope. Turns out how easy or hard ChatGPT was to use had basically zero impact on whether students plan to use it. And why not? Well, the researchers think it's because today's students are, digital natives. Figuring out a new app is just what they do. The effort part is basically a non-issue.
Okay, so ease of use is out. What about peer pressure? Were students just hopping on the bandwagon because their friends were doing it?
And another surprise, that didn't matter either. Peer pressure had no significant effect. It seems like the decision to use this tool is way more personal and practical. not about just following the crowd.
So if it wasn't how easy it is, and it wasn't what their friends were doing, what did matter? Well, it boiled down to just two things. First, performance expectation, the simple belief that it will help them do better. And second, trust, believing the tool is reliable. All the things we might have thought would be a big deal, totally insignificant.
Now, the whole performance thing, that's not a huge shocker, right? Of course, students want something that helps them get the job done. But the trust factor, that's where things get really, really interesting, especially with all the AI-generated stuff out there. It's not just about getting an answer, it's about believing in that answer. And the study revealed a really clear path to building that trust.
And this lays out the perfect chain reaction the researchers found. See, it all kicks off with security. A student has to feel like their data is safe. That feeling of safety is what directly builds their trust in the tool itself. And it's that trust that finally leads them to actually use it. Without that security, the whole thing crumbles.
And get this, the numbers back it up. That feeling of security all by itself accounted for nearly a third of the difference in student trust. That is a massive piece of the puzzle. It tells you right there, if you want people to trust your AI, you first have to make them feel safe.
And the researchers themselves basically say, hey, this isn't some new discovery. This link between feeling secure and building trust, it pops up over and over again with new tech. To earn trust, you absolutely have to guarantee security first.
So that leaves us with a really big question, doesn't it? Usefulness might get students to knock on the door, but it's trust, built on that foundation of security, that actually lets them in and makes them stay. So the real question for the future is, how are the companies building these amazing tools going to convince us, all of us, that what they've built isn't just powerful, but also genuinely safe?